Si quieres ver el mismo vídeo en español, algo po polsku, or in other languages, mira la descripción abajo. Hello everyone! Today we're going to talk about tonal languages. And as an example, we'll take the most widely spoken language in the world. Now, a quick question. What is the difference between these four syllables? Ma, 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 ma. If you think the only difference between these four syllables is the intonation, then you're correct. It's not the same syllable pronounced with four random intonations. Actually, these are four very different words in Mandarin Chinese, respectively mother, ma, ma, hemp, ma, ma, horse, ma, ma, and to scold, ma, ma. Okay, so what's the exact difference between these four Chinese intonations, or tones? These four tones can be defined as follows. The first tone is flat. It starts high and ends high, ma, ma. The second is a tone which starts low and ends high, ma, ma. The third tone is a bit more complicated because it first falls down and then goes up, ma, ma. And the fourth and final tone is the one which starts high and falls down, ma, ma. A tone in Chinese is always applied to a syllable, which at the same time might be a word, but not necessarily. For example, a word that contains two syllables will have two tones. Think about how weird it is. It is as if the English word horse, pronounced horse, meant horse, but pronounced horse meant mother. Well, it is very difficult to learn a tonal language for a person who has never studied tonal languages. In Chinese, the tones are no less important than vowels or consonants. Chinese people perceive tone changes in a similar way we perceive consonant and vowel changes. Cook and book are two very different words, even though they differ just in one sound. Nice! With these examples, we can finally define what a tonal language is. A tonal language is a language in which pitch or intonation can change the lexical meaning. That is, the meaning of individual words or even smaller units of meaning, so-called morphemes. These languages are very common in Southeast Asia, but tonal languages exist in other parts of the world too. Okay, in terms of tones, intonation, Chinese are quite limited. However, we, English-speaking people,
are free to use whichever intonation we'd like to.
Wait a second, are we sure about that? Actually, in English, a change in intonation can also change the meaning. But in English, the change of intonation can rather change the meaning of a whole sentence, rather than a single word. For example, one way of forming questions in English is to raise the tone of our voice at the end of a sentence. What is this? Horse. It is a horse? Okay, but here we might have another question. So, if we ask questions by using our intonation, and Chinese cannot freely change their intonation, how do they ask questions? Well, tonal languages have to come up with a replacement. For example, to ask questions, Chinese and other tonal languages have a special word that transforms an affirmative sentence into a question. All we have to do is to put this magical word at the end of the sentence. For example, in Chinese, this sentence, 这是个子, is an affirmative one. But if we add this word at the end, 这是个子吗? we get a question. By the way, this particle ma is just the tip of the iceberg. Chinese employs lots of other particles for expressing the meaning of disappointment, surprise, encouragement, and others. In Chinese, tone is not something absolute. For example, the level at which my rising tone ends, for another person might be the beginning of her rising tone. It's because this person naturally has a higher voice. Therefore, in Chinese, we still have Darth Vader with his very low voice,
我就是你的父亲.
And celebrities with their very high voices.
我们就去旁边松烟广场，那里人比较多，去听听路人有什么样的看法。
Which are still very easily understood. A tonal language can have tones shaped similar to Chinese, but tones in general can be shaped in different ways as well. Other languages may have fewer tones,
Do, re, mi. Do, re, mi.
But there are also nations that use more tones than Chinese. We'll talk more about tonal languages in the future, but for today, that's it. I encourage you to subscribe and see you soon.